I'm Vern Bernanke, president of the Golf Heritage Society, and I'm going to thank you for coming on to our Grand Zoom series. This is the last of the winter series. We did last fall, and we did the winter, and we did last summer. So we're getting the program ready for the upcoming spring program. We're hoping to have 4, and summer program, we're hoping to have 4 to 6. And we have plenty of wonderful people who you will really enjoy hearing about them, their stories, their interesting journey through the game of golf. So tonight, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Mel Lucas, and we're going to find our way about Mel and his career. I'm going to give you a hint and say tonight that we're going to hear about a man for all seasons. Mel Lucas, the golf collector, Mel Lucas, the historian, Mel Lucas, the superintendent, the consultant to architects and course builders and designers. Mel has done a lot of things in the game of golf. So we're going to work our way through his career and wind up with his author interest as he's written a new book, which is quickly becoming a handbook or Bible, depending on your preference, in the area of golf course maintenance. So the usual is for me to give a brief commercial about the Golf Heritage Society, and things are rocking and rolling for the Golf Heritage Society. We're very, very excited. The board met last week. Our strategic plan is in order. We're very enthusiastic with the regional directors that we have. We have some folks who give us a boost in newer technology and use thereof, and great new ideas. So you may be wondering, well, what's going to be new in 22? So the GHS in 22, what to look for? Guess what? Gatherings are back. We've suffered 2.5 years. Most of us have found a way to become safe with a vaccine and boosters. People have figured out how to get together safely. So we've learned a lot. We've learned how to get together. We did the convention, and we did not have any feedback that anyone got sick. And we were just so pleased with that outcome. It was a great convention held in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh. If you didn't know it, we visited Latrobe, and there's rumor that we're going back there. So there's a lot of excitement. So gatherings are in. We have something on the books for visiting Marion Country Club. So if you're interested in going there for that tour of their history and collectibles, done by past president of the Golf Collector Society at the time, John Capers. He is their historian. And on March 26th, it's a Saturday, we'll visit and we'll have lunch at Marion. We know that we're going to visit Latrobe again, and that's June 27th. That will be a play event. The day before will be a trade show. It will be fun. There'll be some folks playing golf as well. Randy Tantlinger, who runs the American Amateur Golf Association, they will have a competition, a regional competition. Their winners go to Scotland to play an event against 2 or 3 groups from over there, one from Scotland and a couple of European groups. So if you want to play moderns and go to that event, you can find that through our website. That'll be fun. So what else is going on? Well, later in the year, Taba Dale, our Region 9 director, and her very good friend and partner, Kevin McGrath, have secured a unique opportunity for us. We'll be able to visit Prestwick, a site of the first Open in Scotland. That will be October 18th. We will have a very special day where they have resurrected the original 12 holes, and we will play the 12 holes, do lunch, and go out like they do it and play it again. So there are groups going for that and attached travel opportunities. Taba and her company have arranged 4 different kinds of possible visits for play and touring. And if you look for that on our website, I think you'll find it. If Taba comes on at the end, maybe she'll do a commercial for us. And of course, we have our national convention later in the year. That'll be in mid to late September. And that'll be fun. That will be in Indianapolis. And that program is going to be exceptional. The educational component is very unique and very enticing. I think we're gonna like it a lot. And of course, the Grand Zoom series will continue summer, fall, and through the winter. So that'll be all good stuff. Now, the last thing I want to tell you about, and this highlights the skill that we're developing to use technology. We're here tonight because we've learned how to use the Zooms to get us together and start to teach more and more of our members how to find us and participate. Okay, that being said, it takes a couple of folks to put this together. Yes, Mel and I are going to have a conversation, but in addition to that, people bring us considerations for interesting folks to bring on. And Bob Geddes has been our advertiser in producing the wonderful advertisements using Constant Contact. So if your friends are missing the announcements, they need to look for Bob Geddes and they need to open the Constant Contact. So if you will help your friends understand that that's the way to get to the Zoom. Mel hadn't done Zooms, but we taught him how, and boom, boom, in 2 minutes, he's an expert. So that's that. What we're going to do with technology, last thing, we're building subgroups. We've been talking about it. We are ready. So we have a couple that we've formed, and we have a couple people doing beta testing on it to get together. And then we can call a Zoom call once a month for the historians and have a topic, or architecture, or photography, or certain types of collectibles, you name it. So this will give the members the opportunity to seek out both people that have the same collecting interest or the same golf interest. And also they will have the access to their knowledge and interchange and exchange. So that's what I have for you. That might have gone a little long, but that's because there's so much going on. And we're very happy and proud to bring that to you. We want you to share your benefits of membership with your friends, and please recruit. The bigger we are, the better we are. So we have a whole lot of folks, but a whole lot of folks that we have to invite. That said, this year, early in the year, we had the opportunity to meet Mr. Mel Lucas, who is a golf course superintendent. And Mel, I just want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for introducing us to the Golf Course Superintendents, the association, and securing for us an invitation for free to come to that giant convention. And we had 3 players there, and your friends kept sending people to hear about the Golf Heritage Society. I cannot thank you enough for that. Mel Lucas, welcome tonight.
Well, thank you, Bern. And it was good to have you and Taba and Glenn out in San Diego. And hopefully it has increased our membership rolls. And we have an open invite for years to come through GCSAA.
Yes, you mentioned that the GCSAA will be 100 years old in what, 2 or 3 more years?
3 more years.
And there are plans for us to interact with those folks and do something very special. So, Mel, you're a past president of that organization. You mentioned a little earlier before some of the folks came on how big they are. Can you tell us a little bit about the Golf Course Superintendents Association?
Well, the Golf Course Superintendents Association was started in 1924, and it was a group of people that predominantly were the first regional or a local organization of greenkeepers in Ohio, and they had started an organization, and then the president of that decided that it would be good to band everybody together and started going around on so-called fishing expeditions across most of the Northeast and a little bit into the South, and rallied a number of people together that had interest. And September 13th, 1924, they formed a national organization, which included Canada as well as the United States.
Fantastic. Mel, what year were you the president?
I was the president in 1980.
Fantastic. Mel, I always like to get to know and have the audience get to know the life story and the journey in golf. So I like to take you back to the early years when you first learned about the game of golf. How'd that happen? And how did you get interested in the game of golf?
Well, it all deals with my dad. He was a golf course superintendent, and just being born and raised in that surrounds and living on a golf course for most of my life, you're kind of away from a lot of other people. You're somewhat isolated, if you will, when you're living in a greenkeeper's home, well in the middle or outskirts of this wooded area that's called a golf course. And for lack of anything better to do, I'd be riding around the golf course with my dad at the age of 4 and 5. And of course, he played a pretty good game of golf, taught me how to play, which I never could beat him. And then it just stayed with me. And this is basically a lot of the story of the members of GCSAA. There's a lot of different generations. We've got third and fourth generations that are golf superintendents, and it gets into your blood. You enjoy the outside world of being on a golf course rather than being in an office or whatever else that takes the majority of people's lives. And it's kind of rewarding work because you're dealing with trying to make putting greens as quality as possible. You're trying to turn grass into something that it really doesn't want to grow like. But we learn and study, and that's how we're getting these faster and faster greens. So that kind of brought me into what is known as golf superintendents now. I prefer Greenkeeper. It's the way we started. So I like that terminology, and you will never offend me by calling me a Greenkeeper.
So, the most the earliest and perhaps the most famous was Old Tom. He relished that terminology. I believe. I think that he wore that.
Well, that was the first person that was indicated as a greenkeeper. I believe it was George Wilson. I'd have to check on my book because it's full of trivia like that. But the first notation of a greenkeeper was in 1670.
Wow.
So that terminology lasted well into the 30s and 40s in America, as greenkeepers came from Scotland. And then name changes started happening to the majority of people in America, but the greenkeepers in Scotland and in Europe, they're still known as greenkeepers. That's a great terminology. It certainly defines who and what you do.
Cool. I'd read some things about different folks that you've introduced us to, and who they are and what they do. And in some of my readings, I started to understand that there's disaster preparedness in greenskeeping, and there's also dealing with a disaster that couldn't be prevented. And I'm wondering if you could share a story or two of a couple of calamities or near calamities that you've been around, and some that you've been part of, and some that you did an ouch, and someone else had a tough time with.
Well, everybody loses a green now and then, and by no reason other than maybe our overuse of fertilization or whatever. It's unlike a chef in a restaurant or the clubhouse. If they burn the steak, it's thrown out or given to the dog when they get home. Whereas when you burn a green, you live with it for a long time, and if you can bring it back in 2 weeks, you're still looked at as a bum, but you were able to bring it back. So that's kind of the worst scenario that very seldom happens these days. The technologies and everything that have come about have certainly done wonders and made it a lot easier. One of the nightmares that every golf superintendent faced back since watering started to come into vogue for golf courses to stay green was the ability to find somebody that wanted to work at night and water the golf course. And that goes through a myriad of different ways of watering, but the most recent was the old quick coupler system, which most all of us living today had the experience of working with or trying to find people that could do that kind of a job, from anywhere starting at 6 in the evening and finishing up at 11 or 12 at night, damp, wet, and sometimes drunk, which normally would be the case on individuals that had the job. It's kind of a lonely thing being out in the dark and on areas that are not lit other than by headlights, and for lack of anything better to do, it seemed as though the majority of night water people were beer drinkers. And one occasion I came to work and drove into the yard, and I saw the night waterman's car still in a position that it shouldn't have been in. And I knew that something wasn't right, and went out and started looking around. And sure enough, the latter holes are always your last ones that you're watering in. And there I saw the Jeep that he was using for watering, sprinklers still going, lakes and ponds everywhere in low spots, and a lot of empty beer cans on the floor of the Jeep. And the Jeep was still running, and he was out cold. And that was his last effort on working there. And of course, who's the next guy to water at night? It was me, until I could find somebody else. So those are kind of the catastrophes that happen. And fortunately, most people nowadays, they've got so much available to them with the automatic irrigation systems that it's a lot easier growing grass now than ever. But it's the most important thing is the politics of being at a club, especially private clubs, where you really need to be an upfront person and being seen more than the old fashioned greenkeeper that kind of hid in his barn or very seldom was seen.
Mel, there's a lot of science involved. I mean, the eye opener for me when we went to the convention was to learn how much science that there really is. The superintendents, greenkeepers, call you guys what you will and gals what you will. Boy, the incredible agronomy, and then as you said, the control that we start to have with irrigation, so we have some water. But what about Mother Nature? How do you protect against when nature overdoes it for water? Talk to us about some of those challenges.
Well, that's a challenge that can't be controlled. And what do we do is uh, basically through just the knowledge of topography and putting as many drains in as possible, uh, whether being at a new golf course where a lot of the golf architects now are master uh, people when it comes to drainage and irrigation lines. They've certainly learned how to do all those things, which takes a lot of the work away from the golf superintendent when the golf course is finally open for play. On older golf courses that won't see any dozers and what have you, and they want to stay as they are, then it generally falls on the golf superintendent and his staff to make sure that they put enough drainage in to satisfy whatever Mother Nature throws. And of course, the way the greens are designed and built today, uh, in years past, the greens would always have slopes and undulations that would lead water off the greens. And now with the sand greens, we get good percolation. There still is the surface drainage that goes on, but there's a massive drainage system under the greens. And nowadays, it's a difficult thing for Mother Nature to really close a putting green down. Uh, she'll close a golf course down because of a lot of standing water in fairways and bunkers. But in light of that, the way golf courses are built through the architects that are doing these projects, they have taken care of every major issue that Mother Nature could throw.
Mel, do you think that the arguments about global warming causes stronger weather and greater challenges, or do you really feel that we can handle it?
You're asking a question that nobody in the world seems to be able to answer, but definitely climate change is happening. It's been happening for a long time, but now we're becoming more and more aware of it. And the powers that be are starting to struggle with how to correct it, and or at least correct our ways of doing things that have created and promoted the problems that we all face. And it's not just in golf, but it's affecting everybody. So yeah, I mean, how can we handle it? There's what golf courses are doing. We're polluting the air when we mow grass with the gasoline and diesel engine vehicles. Industry is coming forth with prototypes right now of robot mowers. And I mean, that's the wave of the future, and we have to accept it.
So we'll have to stay tuned to see what happens in that era, in that area. So Mel, you've done a lot of consulting. How about telling us a little bit about how that came to pass? I know you spend a lot of time over in Europe. And we were talking about how COVID kind of interfered with that. But tell us about your consulting career.
Well, it came about when I was at Piping Rock Club in Locust Valley, Long Island, and had a grounds chairman that was a tennis player only. And for a number of years, the golf club was primarily geared for just taking care of the golf course itself. And there were 14 grass tennis courts that could play doubles that we maintained, as well as 13 hard true courts and 3 indoor hard true courts. So finally, we had a chairman that came in who was all tennis. And his first year, or his first day meeting with me, he said, well, I've been put on this chairmanship to fire you. So he said, but I want to find out where our problems are at Piping Rock. So, okay, we started, and 8 years later, he finally said, Mel, we want you to resign from the club. And I said, no, thanks. And we've done too much to make it good. And he said, well, then I guess I have to fire you. And I said, well, that's what you wanted to do 8 years ago when we first met. So from that point, I ended up going to a golf course right here in South Dartmouth, designed and built it, 9-hole private club. And as all developments go with individuals that are trying to make as much money as possible, the individual that was in charge of this property had taken enough money that it started to raise eyebrows from Internal Revenue and what have you. And he decided that he better get out of town. And the course went up for auction, but the number of members that had come into this community that was being developed, they bought it out and took it over. But at that time, I was unsure, and I contacted a good friend of mine and indicated that I think I better start looking for another job. And he said, well, we've got a couple of things. Would you be interested in going to Europe? And I said, yeah, that could be in the cards. And he says, well, the only thing is, do you have a passport? Which I did. And he said, how about leaving tomorrow? And I said, well, I can't do that, but in 3 days. So off we went to Vienna, Austria. And we met with the golf architecture firm of G&G Hauser. And they had a new project that was having a lot of problems in its development. And that was in Kitzbühel in the Tyrol. So we went there, spent a day. I got on equipment to show the men how to use it because they were doing a lot of mechanical damage. I spoke with the hierarchy of the little village of Kitzbühel. It was a Chamber of Commerce type golf course. And we hit it off pretty good. Came back home after 3 days. And about 5 days later, I get a call from the Hausers, and they invited me to come back and try and get Kitzbühel in shape, which I said I could do it in 3 weeks. And I left Round Hill here in South Dartmouth with all ways to take care of the place through my assistant. And I got to Kitzbühel, and it took a lot. It took just about the 3 weeks to get it done. I had the pleasure of meeting the people that would open it officially, and that was Bernhard Langer and Payne Stewart.
Cool.
And that was a treat. And we walked around the golf course with them, and had just an enjoyable day. And the golf architects got paid for the project from the town. And from that point on, for the next 10 years, I was spending 2 and 3 weeks in Kitzbühel every year. So that wasn't bad. It was a enjoyable thing. Golf was in a boom, and the Hausers were building golf courses throughout Europe. And they invited me to piggyback on my visits to Kitzbühel and spend time developing all of their projects, which they had in Norway, Hungary, Slovenia, Czech Republic, Germany, and that was just wonderful. I went to places that no American or any tourist had discovered as yet, because it was not a destination, but these golf clubs that were being built were going to be destination points for golfers in the future. So that kept me busy for 28 years. And then COVID, it finally retired me. So I also, because of word of mouth of my working in these countries, I also was invited to Glafada Golf Club in Athens, and golf courses in Spain, as well as Slovakia, Bulgaria, and Romania, and also Sweden. I got to add that. So it's been just a wonderful way of saying it's been a great life.
Fascinating. So Mel, you've along the way picked up a few golf collectibles, I hear. So why don't you tell us about some special people, places, and things? You mentioned Payne Stewart and Bernhard Langer. You've come across some collectibles as well. Do you have any favorite things that you'd like to talk about, or things that you've picked up along the way?
Sure. I started collecting in 1960, and by process of living on Long Island and about an hour away from New York City, I was in the city, just walking around, enjoying this grand place. I should say that my dad was at a golf course in Spring Lake, New Jersey, and we moved up to Long Island. And of course, New York is a fascination for anybody who's been a person living around the seashore and all of that. So I'd take walks around the city, and I was passing a bookshop, and it was down in Fourth Avenue area. And I looked in the window, and there was a golf book. The shop was closed, and I figured, well, someday I'll get back to this. And it was Golf Courses by Hutchinson. And finally, one of the weekends, I'd go in on a Saturday after working on the golf course, because we get done at about 10 o'clock in the morning. Bookshops would be opening up at 10, so I'd get there around 11. And finally, the bookshop was open. I went in and spoke with the woman. I said, "Do you have any books on golf?" And she showed me a lower shelf, and I found 3 or 4 books, and I then asked her, "What about the book in the window?" And she said, "What book in the window is?" And I said, "Well, the golf book." And she looked and she said, "I never even knew it was there." And she pulled it out, and it was $20. And at that time, I was not really that keen, but I figured, well, let me see if it would be a little less. And she brought it down to 15, and I gobbled it up. And from that point on, I started realizing that there were some really nice old books out in the world. And then I started visiting bookshops, and the Fourth Avenue bookshops in New York City at that time were probably 20 to 30. And I knew every place where golf books were in all those shops, and I could go to them, and my collection just started to get larger and larger. I finally became indiscriminate. If it was a golf book, I bought it. Now, at that time, these books were selling at $2 to $5 to $6, and you could banter with the book dealer and say, this is wrong or that's wrong, and easily get another $5 or $6 taken off a bundle of books. And at certain times, there'd be a Saturday that I'd come home with 100 books in my car, and it didn't cost me a lot of money. So that's how I ended up with a little over 4,000 different titles of golf books. And I sometimes kick myself for not being discriminate. I should have been discriminate. But one venture that I had, and it was a very early visit to Vienna, Austria, and that was back in probably 73 or 74. And I was, again, now I knew bookshops, and wherever I went, I always looked for bookshops in the telephone directory. And I found a bookshop right near St. Stephan's Church in the center of town, and went in there. There was an old lady sitting, obviously spoke no English at all. And I asked her about golf books, and I was surprised. She grabbed my hand and she took me over. And of course, what was it? Golf Volkswagens.
Wow.
So I tried to explain hands and feet with showing a swing of a golf club and all that. And she had no understanding of what I was talking about. So I went back the next year, and her son obviously was in there who spoke English. And I asked him, are there any golf books? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, the game of golf. So he took me over, and I got 2 French books on golf and 2 German books on golf. And the German book was done in 1899, and it was just fantastic. It was a history of golf, all in Deutsch. And then the other book was a book that had been put out in 1942. It was The Rules of Golf, put out by the Fatherland. And it had the swastika in the middle of the eagle, and kind of represented an officer's type book on the rules of golf during World War II. So that was kind of a gem. But after that, I never found any more books on golf in Austria, where I spent most of my time. So, and then, just by being a greenkeeper, you're certainly doing certain things. And at Garden City Golf, that was my first golf course that I had. On the treasure that it is, we did some bunker renovation on the 18th green, which is a par 3. And Garden City Golf is a very rough, old, maintained golf course. Even to this day, it almost looks like it was when Travis made it happen in 1899. And we're digging out one of the bunkers in front of the famous 18th par 3 over Lake Cornelia. And deep into, embedded very deep into the ground, as we were removing all the sand from the face of the bunker, was a golf ball. And it was a Varden flyer.
Wow.
And I was absolutely amazed. And from that point on, I wanted to do all the bunkers and see what treasures they held. But alas, I didn't find any gems like that. But, these are the things that you stumble on, and who would ever find that? If you used a dozer, you would have never seen it. But we took everything away so that we wouldn't damage the footprint of Walter Travis's finished face of that bunker. But over the at that time, 68 years, whenever that ball got in there, and it had to have been fairly early, there was about 20 inches of sand that had built up on the face, burying the true design of the bunker itself and burying this sphere of Varden flyer.
Oh.
So it was, these are the things that happen in greenkeeping at old golf courses.
So that was a good day. That was a good day.
Yeah.
So we've talked about some bad days and good days. Hey, we've got a couple questions that have come in. One of them is, back in the day, if I can represent this question properly, back in the day, the golf courses were natural, and they would brown and they would run. And the question is pretty much, well, why are we so preoccupied with green and lush and slow and those kinds of things? Do you have opinions on that, or want to tell us about the evolution? What are your thoughts?
Well, the good old days when things were hard and dry, they were also dead and burned out and full of crabgrass and weeds of all types and what have you. And yeah, it might have been nice golf back in those days, but not really. They were take the golf course as it is, and if you didn't like it, go somewhere else, because there was no other means of handling it. And as golf developed, and you've got to remember, in America, we've got 4 different types of zones of weather, and the climatic change is drastic, and therefore southern climes are not going to be as affordable for a long duration of golf played in, say, the Northeast, where we do have fairly decent temperatures. We've got rain more often, and grass is going to grow a little better. But when you go to some of these areas like St. Louis and even the Miami Valley of Ohio, they get pretty hot and sticky and miserable. Washington, D.C., trying to grow grass in there is difficult. But if you did it the way it was brought back in the teens and 20s, those golf courses were not good at all. Their conditions were horrible. So, what we've had to do is we started mowing grass, and very seldom when mowing, the mower would pick up the clippings. It was left there for a fertilizer, and you'd mow maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and you might be mowing right during the middle of the day. People of today don't want to see any of that. We could cite one instance, 1913, the Country Club during Wimet's win over the Triumvirate. And that golf course for that Open was in deplorable condition. It was filled with crabgrass. It was muddy and soggy, and grass was under tremendous pressure. And it was, I don't know how anybody could have won that tournament because the putting surfaces were not good. So nowadays we have control of everything. We've got mowers that are excellent. They're lightweight enough. The hydraulic systems create a better cut. We've got pesticides that, if used properly, will maintain that grass in good condition on a consistent basis. We've got quality fertilizers that help control the growth of grass. And we, as a golf superintendent, can control the destiny of our golf course. Very easy.
Pretty cool. Hey, Mel, you had some things to say when we were together last about your experiences at Garden City on Long Island. Would you share a couple of thoughts or reflections on those times?
Well, being at Garden City Golf was a real treasure. It's just one of the true wonders of the world for this day and age. It's an eveless Eden. And when I went there, it was in desperate straits. All the greens were basically Poa annua. They were in less desirable conditions. The golf course, as I was told, would be lost in August. And my first year there, we had a pump breakdown, and that was in the middle of July, and I lost the golf course. Poa just vanished. It happened over the 4th of July weekend, and nobody was there to fix the pump, and Poa dies, and it doesn't come back. So at that point, that's when we started in on a massive overseeding of bent grasses. And certainly at that time, I figured this was going to be the fastest job that anybody ever had. It wouldn't have even taken a year for me to be fired. But the green chairman there indicated to me, he said, Mel, we usually lose the golf course in August, and most of our members go out to the Hamptons anyway. And we just lost it a month earlier. So we're all behind you, and let's do whatever we can. So that led me into doing a lot of renovation work on this tired old golf course, and we corrected a lot of problems. My dealing with Garden City, I was given the job when I was still in the Army. I served 2 years at Fort Devens, and Garden City was just great. When I was there, every day there were about 35 golfers that played. That was it. Monday through Friday. Saturdays and Sundays, 120 was about the number that would play. And just a charm. The membership, they were very old. When I think back, had to be average age of probably 65 to 70, somewhere in there. The flag was always at half mast, and very few people were joining. The course was, like I said, not in good shape. It had been let go for a long time. And I met with some wonderful people that represented the true golf clubs in America. The members at Garden City came from Augusta National and National Golf Links and Chicago Golf Club. And these were true history type people that were golf fanatics, older men, and just enjoyed that nostalgia of this old golf course and how things were done or not done. But we resurrected it. After a few years, I had all the tees at putting green height, rebuilt them all, and we mowed them every day. The man would mow a green, then he'd go to the tee opposite it. We had a cup in every tee, and not everybody could do that then or even now. But with that amount of play that we had, I figured I'm going to show everybody what we can do with this old golf course. And because of that, the spring tournament, which is known as the Travis tournament, that has been played for many, many years, it always brings the best of golfers. And we had individuals that became golf pros, George Burns and a few others, and they witnessed the golf course after 3 or 4 years of my working on it, where it was all bent grass, greens, tees, fairways, cups in the tees, putting greens same height as the tee. And from that point, word got out, and I had a few golf superintendents calling me up after the Travis, wondering, what have you done to this industry by creating this? Because Kenneth Gordon, who was a longtime director of the USGA, he went back to his club, Montclair, and I got the call from his golf superintendent saying, this is, what are you doing? You can't do this to our profession. He wants to see if we can't have cups in our tees. So we abandoned it after 2 years. I wanted to get the glory of it.
Well, I can sense your pride and your experience at Garden City, and I know that they really enjoyed your leadership. Hey, Mel, do you want to take a minute and grab a cool drink? Are you okay?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, good. So the first question we had was from Bill Stewart. I didn't acknowledge that. Thanks, Bill. So there's another course that I'm asked about. D. Chapman wants to know, did you find any good stuff, any golf balls when you were working on it? I'm going to mispronounce this. Misquamicut?
Misquamicut.
Misquamicut. Yeah, it's not a place I've played, of course.
Yeah. Oh yeah. With Misquamicut, it was 1895. The course was built. 6 of the holes are out along the beachfront, and about 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, 8 years ago, it was determined that they wanted to raise those the lowest holes, which would have been 3.5 golf holes, 4 feet above the level that they were at. And I was brought in as a consultant to deal with that project. And when they started excavating some of the areas that had always been wet, yes, indeed, golf balls galore. And I must have picked up 300 golf balls, a lot of Haskells, a lot of Varden Flyers, Spalding Whites, gutties. I must have found 35 gutties that were all in pretty good shape. And it was a mine that had never been explored.
Very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool. So, Mel, I think the question of the day, and Jen has this question. The question is, will you talk about the height of the grass when you began your career versus where we are now? And I assume that that also means the impact of on the game, the equipment, and the strategy. So it's a great question. It's the question.
sure. Well, we were, my dad would always maintain the greens at a quarter of an inch. And a number of reasons for doing it at those times. The equipment, probably the best you could do would be an eighth of an inch, but it never left a good, smooth cut. Uh, the frequency of clip, which means the reel next to the next reel, were probably an inch apart. And now with hydraulic units and the mower reel being a little bit closer, maybe half an inch, but the speed is so good that you can leave as smooth a surface as possible. Whereas with the older machines where you walk behind them and they were just basically geared for whatever that back roller chain inside to the gear that was on the reel would spin, and you'd get little minor, but yet they affected the ball roll, rifling or a ridge that if you got close enough, you could see it. And that had an influence on the ball. As years progressed and the mowers got a little bit better, and this is into maybe the 60s and 70s, 3/16 of an inch became kind of the norm. And if you wanted to go a little bit lower, you did it on a special tournament, an outing, or more of a club tournament or member guest. And you'd only do it for the 1 or 2 days that it might have been happening. And then you'd go back up to 3/16. So that was it. Then the phenomena of newer grasses that were coming out, and Pencross was the leader in the 60s, late 50s and into the 60s. It became kind of the go-to grass. It was a monostrand. And prior to that, the majority of golf courses, older courses, were seeded with a South German mixed bent, of course, coming from what it was named after, South Germany. And there would be anywhere from 5 to 10 varieties of bentgrass within this mix. And they would kind of get together in patches on greens. They were beautiful to look at, all different colored patches within one green. But each type of patch or grass had a failure to it. And at no one time during the growing season would any green be absolutely perfect from one side to the other because of all these different patches. And today, one would be great, a few others would not be so great, and others would really be bad. So to try and maintain those many different varieties of bentgrass, some would get diseases and others wouldn't. It was a nightmare, and you could never mow all of them properly without doing some damage to ones that couldn't get a closer height of mow. Now with the monostrand that we have, these greens, the grass is now so well designed for exactly what the golfer wants and demands. closer heights of mow, higher maintenance, but the ability to get an eighth of an inch on a day-to-day basis is now within reason. So yeah, older grasses, they look nice on greens, really beautiful. Were they good for the environment? No, because you were bound and possessed to spray often. And it was not when weather would be favorable for diseases or not, because there was always some condition environmentally that would take one of these grasses out of its good growth pattern. So, we've come a long way. We've developed things environmentally more sound with these monostrands than what we had with the old South German mixed bents.
So, Mel, you're really connecting with this audience. The questions are starting to stream in, and I'm juggling here. So, with what you just said about these changing grasses, does you reading the greens change? Does does the grain still exist? Does it matter? Can you comment?
Well, again, with the new monostrands, to think that there could be a grain of any type is highly unlikely. The grasses have upright growth patterns to them. If you are mowing often, meaning almost every day, or you're utilizing some of these growth regulators that possess the ability to stunt the growth but still maintain its good quality and characteristic. Rolling has helped, and the one major thing, of course, is top dressing and aerification. These all have to be done. Golfers hate them, but they are a necessary evil, and they're only done twice during the growing season. And the rest of the golf course is for the golfer. But these things are vital. Top dressing is done on the better courses once a week, but it's done so light that nobody really knows it. So we've come a long way within the greenkeeping profession, but thanks to the researchers that have done the testing and everything, plus, and I got to pat the USGA green section on the back, the monies that they have put in to these research centers has been phenomenal. And the golfer really needs to take their hat off and thank the green section of the USGA for all that they've done.
Thanks for that, Mel. That's a nice tip of the cap to our friends from the USGA. Now I'm going to flip that one over a little bit, and and I'm going to read this question direct because I love it. It's from JD, and JD says, Mel, what miracle on what course did you accomplish that made everyone think you were the greatest? And what was the most outrageous or memorable request you got from a member of a green committee?
Well, I guess the most important thing was the fact that for 2 years we had a cup in every tee on the golf course. That was the president of the golf club at that time, Garden City Golf. He was a banker with Morgan, and he was president, and he'd bring his people out. I mean, once you had something like that, these people at Garden City Golf started to bring guests, and nonchalantly, when they'd be on the first tee, they'd see a cup in it. And then they'd go on, and by the fifth or sixth tee, they'd be looking and saying, these tees are better than our greens at my club. And that was really a pinnacle. And of course, just bringing back Garden City Golf to the the golf course that it was. That was a major feat. And then what things when a member wanting to do something. There was my first couple of years when things were really tough and trying to grow in this old golf course with antiquated equipment and lackluster people that worked for me. Our fairways still left a little bit to be desired, and we would have a committee meeting every month at the club. And this one fella, John Carter, who was the president and CEO of Fairchild Hiller, came into the meeting and listened to the usual impromptu speeches that the chairman would give and all of that. And then the chairman indicated that John Carter wanted to have a few words, and Mr. Carter said, "Look, Mel, it's all well and good what you're trying to do, but we're not having a good golf course to play on for too long a time." And he said, "I love this golf course and I'll do anything. And if we could resod it, then I will give you $1 million to have this place resodded." Well, this is back in 1968 or 69. I started in 66. And at that time, there wasn't that ability. Nowadays, there is. But in those days, there wasn't. And it took everybody away from their thoughts. And of course, and there wasn't that much bent being grown on sod farms. So the chairman accepted his thoughts and said it would be under review, and to see if we could do it, then we would come to him. But with just a little bit of investigation that had to be done, it never happened. So, but I mean, it takes you aback, especially back in those days when $1 million meant something.
Sure. That was quite of a generous offer. So,
Yeah.
Mel, one question often leads to another, and this sort of follows that one with that kind of request. And Bill Robertson says, just watching the players with reconstruction of the greens with drainage and warm air, do any other courses go to that extreme? Did you catch that one?
Yeah. Well, Augusta National can do whatever they want, and they always have. But not many other golf courses can afford those luxuries. And if you take the golf courses in the Northeast, it wouldn't be a prudent way of doing things. And I would look at Piping Rock and a Meadowbrook Country Club that have unlimited money. Most of their people go south for the winter. So why would you want to have heating greens and everything else when they're not going to come back from the south until end of March or middle of April when the weather is good and the grasses are greening up and golf courses are opening. The Mid-Atlantic area is a different story, so that would be up to places like Congressional. Would they want to afford something like that? Maybe they would, but it's just the affluence of the club and what the people want.
Mel, didn't Marion make major investment in their greens for that purpose?
I believe so. It's been a while since John and myself have talked, And uh, I'm not quite sure what's been happening. I was good friends with Matt Schaefer, who was retired several years ago, and we talk about different things together. But now, I've been forced retired by COVID, and so I have very little going on now in the greenkeeping realm. So what Marion is doing, but yeah, I mean, there's a club that's kind of a transition club.
Sure. Well, I happen to have the pleasure of interacting with Mr. Capers not infrequently, and he has so advised me that they have indeed spent a lot of time, energy, and money to create some amazing control conditions at Marion. So maybe we'll hear a little bit about that. Maybe we'll have a conversation with John Capers on things Marion. Call sometime and he can tell us about that aspect. We're going strong into an hour plus,
Yeah.
and so I want to make a shift so I don't forget to do this. You've been a leader everywhere you've gone. You're obviously a guy who does things right. You're a man of integrity, and that's recognized. You led the Golf Collectors Society. What was that organization like at that time? And what do you feel about the then and now, about what we're doing with golf heritage?
First off, I became a member of the Golf Collectors Society in 1974, and I had the honor of being invited by none other than both Joe Murdoch and Bob Kuntz, as we were kind of holding up the bar at Garden City Golf during the 75th anniversary celebration, where Bob and Joe were invited guests. And I started, I'm not quite sure my number, but I was in the middle hundreds. And what a great organization it was. The people that were in there at that time represented golf administrations of golf associations around the country. I met people like Otto Propst, went along with some hiccups in the road. I was put on to the first board of the golf collectors, and then there was some rifts, and we were changing from a very open, easy type organization and trying to formalize an organization. And I spent a number of years with that. And then there was a split up, and we lost some of the older members, which was unfortunate. But people struggled, and they did a lot of good things. And then I was president for 2 years, and we felt things were in the best of hands. But then another couple of mishaps happened in the administration after mine, which really sent the organization into a tailspin. And then things kind of got straightened out. But what I've seen of the way this newer development of Golf Heritage, the magazine that comes out, is absolutely gorgeous. It's impeccable, and it's something that I'm proud to show other people. And what you are doing, and all of this stuff that we're doing today, was never even thought of. I mean, this is well above the thoughts of maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And you and your board are to be congratulated. I I always enjoyed going to the Golf Collector Society meetings, and then Europe happened, and the annual meetings always coincided with the closing of golf courses for the winter, and I'd be in Europe most of September's, October's, and even into November's. So I hated missing a lot of these, and then I was looking forward to last year, and COVID just had me scared.
We're very fortunate, Mel, that your career and your experience has given us so many years. And tonight we're especially grateful that you and your experiences are so broad and deep that you're sharing them with us. So I'm going to kind of swing to a last greenskeeper opinion here. There's a question that we received from Frank Cantrell about the trend to take out trees. Oakmont and many others are the leader in deforesting their golf courses. Do you have thoughts on why it's happening and what's good and bad about it?
Well, there's probably more positive than negative things about getting rid of trees. And when you look at the really old golf courses, and I look at Garden City Golf and Misquamicut Golf Club and Newport and what has transpired at National Golf Links, when these golf courses were built, there were no trees. That is the way they were. And through mismanagement, where people weren't cutting down grasses, they let them grow, trees started to invade. People thought that was just naturally, they enjoyed it. And over the years, a few trees became forests and nobody recognized it. The golf course grew as they grew, and they accepted these trees that wanted to come in and grow, and nobody was mowing them down. So basically what's happened is going back to the beginning. When you start looking at all the aerial photos and pictures that were taken of golf courses way back, it showed that there were no trees. So just out of that, everybody went in and started being called, whatever the chairman was, chainsaw somebody. And Garden City Golf did that, I guess about 25 years ago. But when I was at Garden City, I recognized that there were too many trees, because when I was there, I found 4 sand bunkers that had been turned into forests. And I started taking out the trees back in the late 60s and well into the 70s. And I'd cut them down in the fall, and we'd take these trees as they were felled, and we'd bring them to the northwest side of each green, which acted as a wind barrier. Long Island did not get a lot of snow, and there would always be some wind desiccation. So we utilized that as a means of cutting trees down. And of course, by the way, Garden City Golf worked on an austerity budget. So when you showed that you didn't have to buy a fence and you could cut a tree down and pull it over and it acted as a screen, they were happy. It cost them nothing. And then we'd cut the wood up, and we'd have wood piles for the members to take for their wood burning stoves or their fireplaces. So, it it was ongoing for a long time, but now with these presidents of clubs and chairmen that are well versed in what golf courses were, they're indiscriminately just cutting them all down. And health-wise, for all grasses, that you couldn't ask for anything better. You need as much full sun as possible, and that makes for a much healthier plant. And environmentally, it's a much stronger plant where it doesn't require as many pesticides to take care of the problems that shaded putting greens would ask for.
So Mel, we just can't say enough about your understanding and sharing of the science as it's come, and the experiences. I want to go back to the leadership, and when visited the GCSAA convention last month, and got to meet so many people, the architects, the builders, the designers, and, excuse me, and so many superintendents. It was fascinating seeing the different perspectives. And we know that the leadership has been very prescient. They've been very forward thinking, and there are women involved in those societies and in the architect societies, and we think that that's great. Taba Dale reminded me on a text just now that we met Leisha and Jan Beljan, and her leadership does a presentation at the GCSAA. Can you say a little bit about where women are in the game in these fields that you're so close to?
Well, women have come into the greenkeeping field fairly well. There are more and more women that are attracted to this organization or to the profession and our organization. And certainly with GCSAA, we're very benevolent with wanting to bring young people in. We have scholarships, and we do everything possible to welcome all. And we uphold the Women in Turf get together. Syngenta is a sponsor of it that keeps it going, which is very kind of them. And it's not an easy job for a woman to be in charge of a golf course, predominantly men working on the course, and having to deal with basically a men board of governors.
And some cultural issues that would be equally challenging, as you alluded to early on. So Mel, before we let you escape, we've sort of built a case, just like as if this was a legal case. We built a case about your experience and your expertise and your sense of history and change. So the question that I have is, why did you write the book? Tell us about the book.
Well, first of all, and I see there's a library behind you, but probably an awful lot of golf. And do you have any book that talks about greenkeeping or greenkeepers?
No, I do not.
And I am sure that there are very, very few, if any, that have that kind of a book, because there is only one, and that's the one that I've produced. And when you start collecting or house over 4,000 plus different titles of golf books, and not one of them was about greenkeepers, a lot about golf pros, a lot about club histories and you name it, but not one about the Greenkeeper. So as I have read so many books, architecture books and greenkeeping books, things on how to do the job, I realized this was something that needed to be done. And I was brought in on the 75th anniversary book that was done by Bob Lamont for the GCSAA 75th. And I was checking through my library on all the things that he and Gordon Whitavine were doing. And I was part of the review committee. And I started taking notes and recognizing things that I had never seen before. And I thought, this is pretty neat. There's a lot of good stuff. It's not about GCSAA, but it's about our beginning, the greenkeeping profession. And after the book was done, I decided to just continue doing research and starting to put together information. And I would do it during the winter. I had nothing better to do. So, and I had a collection right the room next to me, and well acquainted with a number of librarians that shared membership in the Golf Collector Society, Karen Hewson in Canada. And then, of course, I'm involved with the USGA's museum and library. So I had entree to that library, which I visited quite often. Piping Rock had a fairly decent library of the Travis American golfer. And then I took several October trips into St. Andrews and went to the University Library, where I opened up a lot of their newspapers back in 1855 and 56 and read about Old Tom and the different things that were going on. And that was fun because at 5 o'clock, they'd kick out non-students, and it was a trip to the Dunvegan. And of course, the Dunvegan has a lot of history on the walls and behind the bar. So that gave me a lot of reasoning for doing a lot of research. And after 25 years, I figured it was time. I had exhausted myself and figured it was time to put this book together. And that's what I did.
Mel, thank you for that. And I've been dying to ask you that question. I was glad that you shared that. The Golf Heritage Society has discovered that we're something of a vessel to bring people with different perspectives together. And, meeting you a few months back and learning more and more about the earth itself and how it's cared for so we can enjoy the game, and the people that design courses and build courses, and the people, places, and things, the artifacts from all these places, it all comes together. So we're really blessed, and we're really excited that our organization is right in the middle of it and right in the thick of it. So for you to have been a past president of the Golf Collector Society, and for you to have been a past president of the Golf Course Superintendents Association, it's a really big deal for us to have bumped into you and had the pleasure and the honor of you coming and speaking with us tonight. So I'm going to thank you for me, for the Golf Heritage Society, for all the listeners, and I'm especially going to thank you for writing that book from old Tom Morris, because I know that he's happy that you did
it. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's been a pleasure.
So, Mel, there may be a couple of questions out there. If you have just a little bit of energy left, I know there's one or two. We typically will open it up and see if there's anybody out there. There was one in the meantime about, I think it was Bob Geddes wants to know, when he goes to Europe, Do you have any specific recommendations of where to go and public courses that that he should want to play?
Well, first off, Bob, practically all the golf courses in Europe are open to the public. So there's really no such thing as a private club. The only way that they keep it as private as possible is if you want to spend like 600 euro to play 18 holes of golf. And that pretty well eliminates the people they don't want to go on the golf course. But they're all open. They all have to charge a fee, and it just depends on what the club wants and who they want to come and play the course. Austria, probably the number one is the old course in Vienna, Golf Club Wien. It was built in 1901. Lots of different places. If you're bold enough to go to the Black Sea, a course that I worked at was Thracian Cliffs, and it is just a dynamite golf course, a Gary Player design, and it is right on the Black Sea. The cliffs are just threatening, and it is one of the marvels of golf. Other course that you might want to go to would be in Slovenia, a very friendly country, and it's the oldest course in Slovenia, Bled Golf Club, designed by Haradine, and it's just been remodeled by Howard Snow. It is unbelievable, really, really nice. And then other than that, it's if you go to Spain, of course, Valderrama's there, and but they've got one course after another that are spectacular. But they're all beautiful. They're all in the mountains. Kitzbühel is a beautiful course. They've got 5 different courses now in Kitzbühel itself, and any one of the 5, you can't go wrong. Very tourist friendly, lovely spot.
Fantastic. So earlier on the call was Jan Bell-Jan, and she responded to some of the comments that you made about women in golf. And Jan's all over this and sent us all a link, Mel, which is pretty cool because you're talking and we're chatting back and forth and fielding the questions. And Jan sent a link to an article that advises us about the opportunities and the growth of women in the superintendent field, especially within the assistants. Their percentage is up 180%, and there's significantly more women in the position than several years ago. So maybe we're starting to see that growth period where the gals are starting to take charge of those guys that are riding those tractors.
Hello, Jan. And as Jan knows, I've been promoting a young woman from Slovenia, and she's done an incredible job. There's quite a number of women in the greenkeeping positions in Europe. So we can't discount that. They are doing a remarkable job. The one person that I've helped get into a school in UMass, and now she's at a golf course in Attersee in just outside of Salzburg in Austria. And I'll tell you, the golf course is immaculate. She performs maintenance on it. Unfortunately, she doesn't have a staff that would qualify her as the golf superintendent level here in America, where even with our shortages, many golf courses have 10 to 15 people, and she only has 3. And when a course is immaculate, somebody is doing a lot more work than they should. And that's the case in most instances. If here in America we think that we don't have enough help, then the golf superintendent better go over to Europe and find out what it's really like, because they are very limited. And people like the friend of mine, Vanya Drashler, is doing a magnificent job, and she has done at all the courses that she's been at. So, my hat is off to all the women, and we do everything possible to promote them. And Lisa Schwab, who put together the women in golf at the GCSAA level, she's to be commended. And on that note, the very first woman greenkeeper that was named was in 1901. And she took over from her husband, who passed away at the age of 35, Willie Campbell, at the Franklin Park Golf Club in Boston, Massachusetts. So to Gertruda, she was the first. And they also indicated in newspaper clippings about her that not only would she be considered the first greenkeeper, but she also became the golf pro. And wow, that should be a record that if anybody has to name a woman award or whatever to, it should be Gertruda.
That's terrific. So I just got a message from Jan Bell, that made me feel really good that we're on the right track. And I got a chance to meet Jan in Monroeville through Taba, and I can see why Taba has such respect for her. She says, hats off to the men who see beyond gender and who have supported all the women who have entered the greenkeeping profession. And hats off to you, Jan, for being close to us and a friend of Golf Heritage Society and the GCSAA and all those architects and all the people who love the earth and the game that we play on it. So,
Bern, I got to indicate one thing. Jean Valjean is just been great for all professions. We were fortunate to have John and her husband over to the Slovenian Greenkeepers Conference and Show 4 years ago, where she gave a magnificent talk. And, she's great. She's great for the profession. She's great for women. And, I can't say enough for her. She and Alice Dye made history, and she is still making history to this day. So we thank you again, Jan, for your support in Europe, and I hope we can get you on the Austrian conference sometime.
Very good. Well, it's been a great night. We've heard a lot about science and history and development and evolution and techniques and just a whole bunch of things about golf greenkeeping and superintendents. So I, for one, have had a wonderful time. This is a recording that our members are going to have on the Golf Heritage Society website so they can access it. So we really appreciate, Mel, your time, your experience, and your willingness to bring it all together for us. So I'm going to close this out at this point in time. I'm going to thank everybody for their time and attention. And I hope you had as much fun as Mel and I did chatting with you tonight.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
There he is. Oh,
yeah, it's after midnight here in Ireland, so I'm just wishing everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, Bern, can I say something to Mel?
Hi, John. Thanks. I was trying to figure out how and when to jump in here. Here we go.
Hey, Mel, it's good to see you in person, and we thank you for giving us so many chances to meet folks, the greenskeepers. I know Tava and Glenn and Vern had a fantastic time out there, and we do want a lot of those superintendents to join the GHS. I wanted to ask you about our mutual acquaintance, Mark Coons.
Yep,
Have you had a chance to talk to him? I'd love to have him join the organization.
he should. And I've told him about it, and he's got a couple of old clubs, and of course he's picked up a lot of memorabilia from U.S. Opens. But he, like a lot of people, they don't think they have enough collectibles to join. And I keep telling him you'll find something. You've got treasures right now. So we've tried.
And Mel, with all the memories he has, when I was a caddy at Laurel Valley, his older brother was my mentor caddy. And he was a couple years younger, but he's an amazing talent at what he does. And just like you, we get talented people like that with GHS, and they'll help everyone appreciate what the greenskeepers do. And I think most GHSers really do gravitate to the guys and girls that work on the golf course. I mean, the avid golfers, they always want to talk to supers and the folks working out there. They appreciate so much. And I think the supers know the folks that appreciate golf. So the more we get them involved with GHS, the better for all of us.
Oh yeah, I'm all for it.
Mel, I think they liked you a lot.
Well, golf collectors are now Golf Heritage Society is part of my blood, like GCSAA is, and I've only had nothing but great times and memories, and a lot of very good friends through both of the organizations. And I've only been made richer for it. So I thank you and what you're doing for all of us older guys that, when I came in, I was one of the youngest, and now I'm one of the oldest.
Well, you don't look it, my friend. You got many with us. So Jan just gave us a text to say we better come to the GCSAA meeting in Orlando in 2023. I think that's where she said it is.
Yep.
So that sounds exciting. So we had such a good time in San Diego and met so many fabulous people and shared back and forth as it's meant to be around the game of golf. That fellowship just is growing and growing. So it's all been good.
Good.
Very good. Hey, so it's sort of an open mic at this point. There's still 13 people, Mel, that people may want to listen in to what we're chit-chatting about or
Sure.
have conversations. Anybody else out there want to say hi?
Hi, Jan.
Mel, how long did it take you to write the book?
26 years of winters. And a lot of good places to go and check things out. And I knew the library at Piping Rock had the full run of American golfers. So I spent like 4 days there and went through every page by page. And then Karen Hewson, I spent a week up in Toronto, and Karen allowed me everything open, golf and Golf Illustrated, which they had full runs, and whatever I needed, she copied for me. And that was a great time. And then, well, of course, going to St. Andrews, I never needed a reason, but the book became a good reason. And I went through the library of David Joy. I don't know whether you've met him or not, but he's the person who does the characterization of Old Tom, gets dressed up like him, and he's just a marvel. And to go to St. Andrews, I've probably been to St. Andrews 13 times, but probably 6 times on the effort for putting the book together. So it's been a lot of fun, more enjoyment than work, and it's been great. So I hope you enjoyed it.
Your enjoyment shows and it reads in the book. I can tell you're having fun writing it.
Thank you so much.
Great article about Jan in the golf magazine this month, and we always like to brag about Jan and Mel when we're trying to recruit new members. So it was nice to read that article that Taba did.
Thank you. It was nice to be considered and honored. Thank you. Well, I'm thrilled that there are so many people who are interested in history, because so few people are interested in history of anything. So at least, one of the things that I like to think about is the perspective, put golf in its own perspective, the way Mel has done. What was contemporary? What was in the era of the things that why were things being done the way they were? Part of it was cultural. Part of it was because that's as good as the equipment was. And that's why I asked the question about the grass, about the mowing height, is how well did people play then, and how well do they play now? I think the USGA would tell you the same. They're, as long as they've been keeping the handicaps, they haven't changed that much proportionately. So there's a small clue.
Yeah, there's been a lot of comments about, everybody talks about the ball, the clubs, but the biggest factor is agronomy.
Yes. Well, when, has anybody here ever played with a scorecard that had the stymie on it? So if we had to play stymies, what do you think pace of play would be?
Funereal.
I can't think of a greenkeeper superintendent who would have let me play stymies on her course.
Well, no, because the conditioning is so good now.
Yeah, the step isn't one.
No, it's not. Well, Mel, can you say can you imagine, or can you remember, or what the stimp meter reading might have been at the courses you maintained early in your career?
Oh, Jan, I would have to think that a stimp meter on the a 1/4-inch height cut turf would probably be around 5, 5.5. When you look at some of the old pictures of Hogan and Snead putting on greens that you knew were around 1/4, they had to really move that putter through the ball, and it wasn't a little tap. So I would have to think it would be between 5 and 6. And then as we got a little better and down to 3/8, could it possibly have gone to 7? Maybe.
Okay, I don't know if I can hold this up to you because it's so heavy, but I'll hold it up and maybe you can see it. So this whole book, see how thick that is?
Yes.
These are the tournament fact sheets for PGA Tour events. And let's see. So here's one that says this is for what was then called the Lincoln Mercury Kapalua International. It was an unofficial tour event. Stimp meter rating for member play. Average year round was 8 to 8.5. That was 1996.
Wow.
1996. Then so let's see if I can find another one. Franklin Templeton Shark Shootout, Sherwood Country Club, Thousand Oaks, California. Average member play 9 to 9.5 feet. So they have drier weather there.
Yeah.
Myrtle Beach, the Dunes Golf and Beach Club, 8 to 8.5 feet. Let me see if I can find an older one. Sorry?
We read in the old golf magazines about the old pros who could curl their putts. They could both slice them and hook them. I'm fascinated by that. I have never been able to do it.
Well,
Do you think that the higher nap on those greens back in the 1900 and earlier days would more easily hold a curling ball?
Well, so let's ask the first question is, do you think the ball rolled on the ground, or do you think that the putter elevated the ball so that you could hook and slice?
I have tried doing, I've tried putting it. I've tried even hooking a ball with a mashie, or putting it with a mashie to get a little lift and a little curl on it. Yeah, I'm not the greatest putter, but that question, I just wonder, the greens are so smooth today. How could that happen? Could you do it today?
Well, that's the question. Have you tried putting on a tee instead of a green?
Not so much, no.
Well, that would, Mel, would the mowing height of tees today equate to the mowing height of greens when they were doing that, when they were slicing and drawing putts?
Oh, I doubt that, because most courses are mowing the greens or mowing the tees fairly close. I mean, they're equaling probably a quarter of an inch at the lowest to maybe 5/8 of an inch, and therefore would it resemble something in the 50s, 60s? Yes. But would it equal what was being done in the 30s, 20s, teens? No. The ground was so baked and so hard that you had opportunities of using putters that had a little bit of a degree or angle to them.
Putting cleats, they call them.
Yeah, right.
JD, you right-handed or left-handed?
Right.
Okay, go out to your golf course tomorrow or the next day, go to your practice green and find you about a 5 or 6 foot long putt that will move right to left. Okay, just find you a putt on the practice green that you know breaks from right to left.
No snow
And
on the green, right?
Okay, practice lining up straight at the hole, but open the putter face. Because most right-handers will typically pull a short putt of that length anyway, and miss low and left. So to avoid pulling it, all you got to do is aim straight at the hole, but open the putter face. And that'll push the ball out to the right of the line with a little bit of a slice spin, and it'll take the break and dive right in the hole. All you got to work on is getting the speed down. So you can still slice putts today, regardless of green speed.
You make it sound too easy.
It just takes
I'll
practice.
Give it a try.
Yeah,
I have
it
to
just
wait
takes
for
practice.
the ice to go away, though.
Mel, you were great tonight. Jan, you too. It's great to see you all. I've got to go. Got to get up early in the morning. Some of us
know.
do green
Let me
keeping.
show you. I'm going to show you one thing. I don't know if you can see this. Let's see. Oh, it's in reverse. Is it in reverse, or can you
Oh,
see
I
this?
can see
we
it.
got
Okay, TPC Sawgrass. See on this page?
Yeah,
Look, you'll see the stimp meter reading of 8.
yeah.
wow.
You see
wow.
that?
Thanks for that.
See
That's
that?
a nice find you've got
And
there.
that is 1994.
Wow.
And hey,
There you
Matt,
are.
great. Matt, it was great to meet you as well down at the at San Diego, and I hope to see you again. Maybe I'll find my way over to Charlotte sometime.
Oh, yes, sir. And I've actually I was going to reach out to you anyway, because I was pleasantly surprised when the mail arrived yesterday afternoon. So thank you so much for the card and the book. And I was going to reach out to you later this week anyway. So yeah.
Well, here we are.
Thanks.
We distributed for the sake of those still on the call, and we are still recording, by the way. With our visit, we put out a flyer to all the participants and invited them to our table, and we had some gifts that we were able to mail out. Mel's book was one of them, and that was terrific. And we had a couple donated by Mike Beckerich from Classics of Golf. And the Oakhurst story was one of those. So was that the one that you received, Matt?
It's right here on the coffee table with me. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
it's unlike Bern Bernanke to not tell at least one story. So I've played in the National Hickory Championship. This will be the 25th year, and I'll play in my 13th. So about half of them, and 6 of those were at Oakhurst. And I had the opportunity to meet the family, and it was just a phenomenal thing. And the gal that wrote that book wrote it because Oakhurst was their family's summer home up in the mountains, and she gave my wife and I a tour of the little house that's there on the property, and upstairs it was her bedroom with all of her baby dolls still on the shelves as she left them years before. And boy, the stories that she told us about Oakhurst back in the day, it was just phenomenal. It was a great day for me. And that book that I have, she signed it and wrote a little note. And it's a very special book. Very special. So you enjoy it.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you again.
Night
Mel.
all.
All right. Which
Hey,
time?
Vern, I'd like to invite everyone to Latrobe, June 27th. 26th, we'll have a collector show. The 27th golf will be a fun day, remembering Arnie Palmer. And we'll check out Latrobe Country Club because I think the slip meter's got them going pretty darn fast.
I'm sure.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
George, thanks. And Bob Geddes, thanks. We love you guys.
Thank
Good night
you,
now.
Vern.
Good night, all.
Good night.